I have a confession to make. I have a story to tell you. When I had my first crush, I had just entered middle school, and I was a new kid. But I just couldn't have any conversation with any girl, and not of that sort. Now, see, she was like Goliath, and I was like David. Now you can probably imagine where this story is headed. One day I decided to go talk to her, and let me just say it was a complete failure. I tensed up, and after about 3 sentences of solid conversation, I just blanked out. I can say I was pretty embarrassed. Some of you may think that this is diligent and brave, and some others will think that this was actually pretty cringy and humorous. Now, this last thing, humorous, is why I come to speak to you. Now, why is it that some things seem funny to us while other things just are not? And this is where people make silly and incorrect assumptions, thinking that every person's brain is basically the same and that we should perceive the things in the same way. But in reality, people have different preferences on the jokes that you make. And this is because we have a spectrum that classifies every single joke in our mind. And this spectrum is what we call the benign violation theory. But before we get to that, let's see what humor is. What is humor? Humor is, what is its purpose, let's say? Humor is something in our daily lives that is actually a part of our brain's actions. See, according to Robert Provine, a neuroscientist and professor of neurobiology and psychology at the University of Maryland, laughter is an unconscious response to social and linguistic cues. He further describes this by saying, laughter is primarily a social vocalization that binds people together. It is a hidden language that we all speak. It is not a learned group reaction, but an instinctive behavior programmed by our genes. But what does this mean? This means that laughter is not something that you learn, but it actually comes equipped with you. This is further clear when his students made another study where they found that laughter was 30 times more frequent in social than solitary situations. Vsauce, a famous science YouTuber, has a video which explains an article by Igor M. Suslov called Computer Model of a Sense of Humor, claiming that you can explain humor in a computational manner. But how does it work? What does it mean? Well, this is because your brain, it stays in front of your ears and your eyes, anticipating the punchline of a joke. If you get a joke and you don't expect the punchline, that the neurotransmitters transfer the energy that was in your frontal lobe, the blue thing, and it turns it into convulsions, or what we more regularly know as laughter. Now, science reporter Tanya Lewis also has an explanation of humor, saying that also again, frontal lobe, is responsible for interpreting the jokes that you make. The left side, we're looking at it from the left side. The left side is responsible for analyzing the structure of a joke, while the right side is responsible for identifying if the joke was actually funny or not. When this part of the brain functions, it triggers and takes control of parts of the brain, such as the central lobe. The central lobe is the line between the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe. And this central lobe is important because this part controls fear and hunger, what you perceive as fear and hunger. So you can see how much power humor actually has. Now, humor controls, other actions, as I just explained, and it controls your entire body, even if that laughter only lasts a second. Now, what is so enjoyable about humor? This challenge has been faced by even the most brightest minds of all time. And no, I'm not even talking about Donald Trump. Starting with Aristotle, in his second book of poetry, a book where he generally talks about Greek plays and tragedies, he says that to make good comedy, we have to banish all thought of mortality and morality. What does this mean? Well, we have to, if you get a joke and you have the judgments of this mortality and morality, you you're just not gonna like it. Then comes Plato. This widely influential philosopher thought that humor relied on the misfortune of others, basically a superiority complex. This is also, in modern times, it's also known as the superiority complex theory. And as Plato was making his theory, he decided that this emotion was pure evil, stating that the ridiculous is a certain kind of evil, specifically a vice. The guilty pleasure of enjoying how others suffered was thought of to be evil on his behalf and nothing else. But these thoughts of evil have been downplayed in modern society by a theory that is opposite to such, and this theory is harmless violence. A thought on how humor doesn't support the inferiority of society, but rather the unification of it. In between the many theories that attempt to answer this question, there is one that stands out, and this is by Dr. Peter McGraw. He also made a TED Talk. He is a professor of both marketing and psychology in the University of Colorado Boulder. He was wondering why were people laughing at morbid jokes that were made in his community, regardless of how dark they were. And after conducting his own research and ideas, he detailed that humor serves as a distraction to cope with feelings of stress, lugubrious sadness, and adversity to create a quick, exultant joy. This joy is the result of what he refers to as the benign violation theory. And this theory has three conditions. 1, a situation is a violation. 2, the situation is benign. And 3, both perceptions occur simultaneously. Again, how does this help to answer our question? Well, the theory is describing the challenge that the joke or event has to fit in this gray area of being both benign and being a violation. So yeah, the joke can be harmless enough to make the receiver alert, but it also won't make him forget the joke. If a joke, again, violates too much to the receiver, it can make him offended. And this is something that happens in modern society. It all really comes down to your gray area. Even though it can seem wrong and misleading that it's just all about violations, no. The benign violation theory really tries to establish a positive reaction to a situation, and at the same time making it okay. The problem is that every person's view on humor changes under definition of what is funny and what isn't. Your brain works differently than everybody else's, meaning that the definition of what you believe is funny and what not can vary depending on every person. This is where modern society tends to trip sometimes. Now that not everybody finds things as harmless as others when it comes to violations or of the jokes. Meaning that suppose laughter can actually turn into anger. According to a social psychology online article, things are funny when they break the standard life routine without threatening anyone. For example, take a comedian telling a joke about 9/11. Not funny, right? Now tell it to edgy teenagers and they will probably laugh because it's not directly connected to them. This is when the theory takes a great turn. The joke has to appeal to the audience, just like any paper or essay you write. It might not sound very friendly, but it sure works, as many comedians are based on this for their shows. Famous and controversial comedian Bill Burr speaks of this subject all the time, having two extremes when it comes to the groups that view his shows. We have the fans, the ones that enjoy his violations, his jokes, and then we have the bloggers, who seem to think that Burr is crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed in such a progressive society. Writer Ian Crouch writes for the New Yorker about how he felt about the latest comedy special he saw from Burr, saying that, "I laughed at these jokes, at the same time knowing that it would be perfectly reasonable for someone to find them mean-spirited and retrograde. They're both of these things, and saying so means that I am the kind of hypocrite who laughs and then later attempts to explain away or renounce all laughter." The expectation of society to change Crouch's thoughts of pleasure into guilt is what Burr has been claiming to be the biggest rupture in modern comedy. This is further explained when Burr says, "If I'm saying something and I'm joking, then I'm joking." This is the deal. Those people who get offended like that, if they want to see stand-up comedy, they should hire a comic for a private show and go. These are topics you can talk about, and these are the topics you don't. So we come into the hostile environment of a comedy club, and we get to say whatever we want. First importance for context here is a core explanation of perspectives. Every mind has a different standard for a joke, but that does not mean it was intended to be expressed in a way other than pleasure. After all, a joke is a joke for a reason. So now, you may be asking, what would be the perfect joke to say right now in front of everyone in this auditorium? And to be completely honest, I don't think there is a perfect joke. See, at the end of the day, comedy is completely subjective, just like any other art. There will never be a perfect painting, and there will never be a perfect musical album, as it won't really relate to everyone. No matter how hard everyone tries or wants it, there will never be a perfect joke. That being said, this does not mean we can create a very good one, as comedy really has many factors as we just explored. We have to remember that we all have a different spectrum installed when it comes to humor. This can be negatively seen in our society because people will disagree harshly with others. People forget the major concept of humor, and that is to entertain and give out pure joy, not provoke millions of opposites. As I said earlier, comedy is a form of art that exists in the form of benign violation with the purpose of bringing pure joy. I encourage everybody to acknowledge this information the next time you get a joke told or prank pulled on you and you feel weird. Or you feel cringe towards a joke you get. At the end of the day, we should remember, just like Charlie Chaplin once said, a day without laughter is a day wasted. Thank you.